Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Summer is here. We have enjoyed some lovely weather here in the UK, and I've been editing my podcast sat in the sunshine, building up my base tan. Who says men can't multitask, eh? But in February this year, a company called Linksquares, which is a provider of comprehensive AI-powered SaaS contract management and analysis tool, they raised $14.5 million in Series A financing led by Jump Capital, and that meant the company had raised $21.4 million to date. And they were going to use that financing to expand engineering, sales and products teams, as well as build out its solution portfolio. And that alone was more than enough to put them firmly on my radar. But with more than 500,000 contracts under management, Linksquares is helping hundreds of its customers understand and better mitigate risk, liabilities in minutes, not months. And that feels like a real game changer for me. So I wanted to learn more about how with Linksquares customers have automatically extracted more than 5 million unique data points on parties, contract effectiveness and other key legal terms. And also how companies such as DraftKings, Fitbit, Twilio, VMware and Pendo are relying on them to elevate their internal value, reputation and productivity by simply eliminating that time spent on manual and ineffective processes so they can protect their companies with confidence. So with all that in mind, I invite you to buckle up and hold on tight because I want to beam your ears all the way to Boston so we can speak with Vishal Sunak now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Vishal. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Neil, thanks for having me. My name is Vishal, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of a legal technology company called Linksquares. And Linksquares' mission is to help in-house legal finance teams better store, search, analyze, and understand contracts, executed business contracts specifically.
And my understanding is Linksquares is the provider of one of the most comprehensive AI-powered SaaS contract management and analysis tools. But can you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with technology that wasn't possible until now?
Yeah. So if you think about a company, companies execute agreements with vendors, customers, employees, partners. These business documents often get redlined, they get negotiated, and oftentimes companies choose to use like the company that they're signing's contract, right? In the case of like a much bigger company working with a much smaller company, those things happen quite often. And so the big thing that kind of materializes inside of a company is you get a mass of these executed business agreements, but they're all, and they can be all a little bit different, right? In the way that they've been negotiated, specific things you've agreed to. And so there are moments in time that can happen every month or every quarter, or even kind of asynchronously, driven by an event where understanding what's inside these contracts and being able to have a comprehensive report that say, all these customers have agreed to termination for convenience, right? That's inside the contract, right? And so they can get out of their relationship with me as their vendor at any time, right? Being able to pull that information is like really, really difficult for companies. There's really been historically like a lack of tools to be able to like do this sort of analysis. Storage options are pretty much haven't evolved in the last 20 years. Storing files on the cloud is a new thing. Putting them in folders is an old thing. And so the biggest problem is there's a lot of inefficiency. There's a lot of time spent. There's a lot of money spent. There's a lot of resources committed to doing contract review to drive business operations. And so what wasn't really possible until cloud infrastructure, cloud processing, machine learning became really like prevalent is the ability to have computer assisted review of these documents, right? And so in the spirit and the mission and the voyage of saving these dreadful, long, manual, time-consuming projects that companies have been suffering through for, call it, the last 10, 20 years. That's what Linksquares is setting out to do, right? With the software that we have is just make a much better experience for in-house legal and finance teams understand what's inside these business agreements when their business needs these answers.
And I've got to ask, though, I mean, what was the story behind Linksquares? I mean, can you remember the inspiration that led to where you are today?
Yeah, so my co-founder Chris and I, we were working at a tech company in Boston, and the tech company went through an acquisition. So other bigger company came in, and they were interested in purchasing this company. And Chris and I were supporting the integration of the two companies. And one of the things that the acquirer wanted to know what was inside all these customer agreements that we had. And we had like 6,000 or 7,000 customer agreements. This was like a beyond $20 million run rate type of revenue company. So we had lots and lots of customers. And through the years of me being in like an operations role, I had seen a lot of redlining going on our subscription agreements, and us taking third-party paper when we worked with big brands, and knowing intimately that if the acquirer asked us right now, like which contracts have unlimited liability for data breach, or a blocker of change of control, or assignment only with permission, some of these really important business terms that we've already agreed to, we didn't track any of it, right? And as a Series B company growing like a rocket ship, it's super hard to think about tracking this data. And so when these requests were being asked of us by the acquirer, so that they could get a better basis of understanding of this business that they were purchasing, where I worked, we quickly began to figure out that the types of questions that they were asking were impossible to answer without a really long manual review, where we would try to collect all the files and try to read them all, right, and try to document and record this information that they were looking for. And so, having purchased maybe $1 million worth of software products for the startup I worked at and helped implement them, I went out and took a look at like what tools existed in the market in the contract space. And contract management is not a new category. A lot of the software that you can find is primarily driven by the needs that exist for a company pre-signature before a document gets executed. This type of problem that we were trying to solve is completely different, which is like these documents are already executed. This is not a better way to get them to signature. We now need a tool to help us understand what we've already agreed to, and didn't feel like there was anything substantial in the market. Saw it as a big opportunity and thought to ourselves, we can't be that different. We're a venture-backed software company growing like a rocket, and we went out with that idea, and that's how the company got started.
And from there, of course, to date, you've now raised over 21.4 million to date. And we're going to use that financing, I believe, to expand your engineering, sales and products teams, as well as build out your own solution portfolio. But what lessons have you learned, especially around seeding rounds, that would help maybe other startup founders listening to our conversation today?
Yeah, it's fundraising can be, if you choose that path as a founder, can be a very necessary evil, and we saw it as a very kind of necessary piece to this company, given that the technology that we aspired to build takes a lot of specialized talent, right? And so, thinking and giving advice to founders, which I do, quite often in my travels, it will take much longer than you think it will, and it's in a baseball analogy. It's all about taking a lot of at bats, and what that means is like building a big list of investors that you, in the most optimal sense, are keeping warm with like updates. Like, so you're building a list, you start with 10 or 20 investors. Over time, you meet more, you spread your network out, you get intros, you take intro calls. You then are maybe a year and a half away from raising capital. You can then start to keep them warm with company updates, right? And I found that to be one of the best ways that I got our first seed round done is John Murphy at Hyperplane. I had met him a year previously when we were like just getting off the ground, and I just kept him warm over the period of a year and kept him updated with new information about how the company was doing. And so it will take longer. There's no such thing as having too long of an investor list, but kind of like sales, you have to get pretty specific as to like the people that make sense in terms of who could lead a specific round of financing for you. Like, you shouldn't go and contact investors that do only direct to consumer and $50 or $60 million rounds or above, because they're not a good fit if you're out raising, call it $3 million, and you're a B2B software sale, right? And so getting better with the hypothesis, like this investor, it matches what type of round I'm raising. Their portfolio matches the type of investment they could make in me, because we look and feel the same, and building out that working list and keeping at it. It's a fun, hard, exhausting, anxiety provoking exercise, but it definitely can accelerate the company if that's the path that you choose.
And after a few months working from home, I suspect that many businesses are learning that their internal processes are just no longer fit for purpose. So companies such as DraftKings, Fitbit, Twilio, VMware, Pendo all rely on Linksquares, though, to elevate their internal value, reputation and productivity by eliminating time spent on those manual and ineffective processes so they can protect their companies with confidence. But do you have any examples or use cases that you could possibly share that would just help listeners understand how you're helping companies and how it might offer them value too in this post-pandemic world that we're heading into?
Yeah, specific to this kind of pandemic phase that we're in right now, there's a clause that exists inside business agreements called force majeure. And the force majeure clause, in my opinion, is like historically been just one of those clauses that don't heavily get negotiated, like historically, and the reason for it is that it's a clause that I used to personally read it and laugh, like an act of God. Like what does that even mean, right? An act of God can delay or excuse performance, or there could be a termination related to this act that you can't control. And now here we are. I've been working at home for 10 weeks, and it's now become really something that's on the forefront of most people that have to think about contracts now forever, right? And so one of the ways that we're adding value is through our technology, right? Through our artificial intelligence, we can read documents and extract metadata. So today we extract over 40 pieces of metadata, things like what's the effective date, who the parties, but we can also extract like full paragraphs. So like we're adding a lot of value to companies like the ones you listed by giving them like fingertip access to clauses like force majeure, being able to query their contract base, understand what is inside the force majeure that they've already agreed to. And so if you think about it, like you're a hardware company, you're procuring parts for a product that you're assembling. Is there a delay that the manufacturer that you're working with, can they excuse or delay their contractual performance to deliver the piece parts to you so you can manufacture the bigger hardware device that is the core to your business, right? And like what that means, right? And how understanding how it can impact you, especially in these times, is super valuable. At a really high level, today, like controlling costs is a big thing for companies as things are getting more challenging. Businesses are getting tighter. They're getting run on a tighter expense run rate because the future is more uncertain. If not knowing what was inside all these contracts you have with your vendors was potentially an area of concern for you pre-pandemic, then surely right now you must be pulling your hair out. So that's some of the value that we're adding immediately. And then also on the customer side, however you make money, especially in the B2B environment, like what have you already agreed to in terms of like termination? Like, can someone terminate this contract for any reason? Can they terminate it for things you can't control? Having that basis of knowledge has been really valuable to the companies that work with us already, kind of taken this journey into having this level of sophistication and having this level of insight. That's what really energizes the company every day, and really provides us with a lot of mission-driven purpose to continue on and continue to get our software into everyone who will talk to us.
If we just zoom out for a moment, Linksquares is ultimately a web application tool designed to help those legal and finance teams work together smarter. But do you have any use cases that would just enable listeners to understand the differences between how that relationship possibly used to work and how it can work with Linksquares?
Yeah, I think lots of relationships you can see over time between two departments have had friction because they're not sharing the same data, right? I mean, you can see that in like sales and marketing functions maybe 10 or 15 years ago, before things like CRMs and marketing automation really became, part of the vernacular that every company has, right? I think legal and finance, they're very closely related, and not having access to the same information, looking and sharing the same data, right, has historically caused a lot of conflict, right? Where is that executed agreement? What's inside our ERP? What's inside our billing system? Did you invoice them the right amount every year when this contract comes up for renewal? Did you take 6%, annual increase? That's already what we agreed to. Like, not having those sort of open conversations that are data driven has historically been, I think a big challenge between legal and finance teams. And so it's been great to see the adoption of Linksquares inside of companies, right? And we may sell it into the general counsel and their team, and quickly it spreads to finance and then other operations and business systems and business operations. And it's been a real joy to watch people evangelize around the data that we store as your new system of record or a new system of truth and data, being able to mold those teams together. And so seeing them work more efficiently has been, it's just been really cool to see.
And in just a few months, that whole concept of business as usual has just gone completely out the window. And the coronavirus pandemic has much of the world in lockdown or coming out of lockdown now, pending day-to-day life and business as we know it. But do you have any tips that could help companies manage their contracts much more effectively and efficiently during this time?
Yes, some of the stuff that I recommend, we've talked about a little bit, but definitely having access to every agreement that is active that you've executed, have it in a searchable format, being able to pull out and look at data that's important to you vitally. The needs of companies are changing every day and every week as the uncertainty of the public markets, the uncertainty of the private markets, and the venture funding market continues to loom over all of us, right, for the foreseeable future. I really believe that, like, these documents are so critical, right? They're the thing that governs a relationship with lots of different entities and people that help your company exist and help it survive, right, and help it thrive. So definitely think about managing your vendor contracts, understanding what you've agreed to. Think about auto renewals. Think about technology that you're not using that you could potentially get rid of if you're looking for ways to save money. And ultimately, being a good corporate citizen, being corporately responsible for the spend of the company. If you're in that sort of role and you have that purview into understanding it, you can add a lot of value to your business at this time.
So, how is artificial intelligence helping in-house legal teams to protect their company's understanding and mitigating risks and liabilities, but in minutes rather than months? Is that something that you can share with me? Because there's so much great work going on there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, specific to what we're doing, like I mentioned, we have these 40 metadata algorithms, and they extract metadata in basically 5 minutes. And
Wow.
so the bigger value prop is, right, if you think about knowledge and insight and data, it's like a hierarchy, right? I mean, like at the most fundamental level, at the lowest level, you get access to raw data, right? And so if you don't even have access to raw data that you can consume, you can't then build like insight out of it. And then if you can't build an insight that you can then go take an action, you're definitely not going to get to the point where you have like real wisdom about like what's going on and be able to like guide and change strategy. And so, the way that we think about, why is like AI the hot topic is because, AI never takes any day off. It can operate as efficiently as it always has, given the kind of level of accuracy that it's gotten to through algorithm development, right, through training, right, as we call it. And so it's really a super interesting time, for the industry as a whole, as these technologies are becoming easier to implement and deploy. I mean, we're really excited about being part of this revolution, being a company that one day soon can pull out 100 pieces of data in a matter of minutes. And that really provides the whole foundation in which, then we can alert you that a contract's expiring and really give you insight and actionable information. And so ultimately, I think, it comes back down to data and having access to it. And then from there, being able to take action on it.
And what's next for Linksquares then? There's so many companies now started this year with a whole heap of plans, but maybe they've had to pivot or change those plans. So what's next for you guys now?
Yeah, maybe one day going back into our office in Boston, which we all really like our office, but maybe not anytime soon. I mean, what's next for us? Continue to do the things that I talked about on this call, and continue to evolve our product offering, continue to help these companies. We actually have a plan to build a bigger platform. And we'll be announcing that pretty soon here, that we're going to extend our capability of our software into pre-signature as well. And so I'm really excited to be driving a really optimized platform out into legal teams that historically haven't really purchased much software, haven't really purchased any software to do anything. That's kind of what we see in the market. And also hearing about the general counsel, the CFO, wanting to buy one platform that can do multiple things and have it be like seamlessly fully integrated. So I'm excited about like spending 2020 focusing on controlling the things we can control, right? There's a lot of things that we can control, like in terms of how efficiently our company can operate. And one of the things we can control is the product development, right? Continue to push hard on the product development, continue to spend this year loading up on the features that our customer wants, have been begging us for, and then hopefully, in the year to come, be in a position where we can continue to have lots of happy customers and go find a whole bunch more.
And for anyone listening that would just like to find out more information or keep up to speed with the kind of work that you're doing, can you just point them in the direction of your website and the best way of contacting your team?
Absolutely. Come visit us at linksquares.com, and look forward to chatting with you anytime.
Fantastic. Well, I've loved having you on here today, and I love what you're doing here with the technology and how quick it's managed to perform tasks in ways that legal teams and finance teams could only dream of, a couple of years ago. It's fantastic. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on here and share a few minutes with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Appreciate it.
I must admit, I found myself fascinated by how this AI-powered contract repository can automatically find and extract key terms and metadata from contracts and provide key insights with deep search, custom reporting and analytics. And we're talking about the difference between minutes and months. So as a result, Linksquares is saving high-growth companies hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars by eliminating those manual contract reviews and the need for outside counsel. But if you have any experience with this type of technology and the difference that it's making, whether that be Linksquares or any company out there, I want to hear from you. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk, and all my social channels is just Neil C. Hughes. So look for me there. And please get in touch. I'd love to hear more about this particular topic. As for everyone else, I'll return again tomorrow. I've already got another guest lined up for you, so I'll see you then. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.